Hello and welcome to everyone watching. My name is Raven Crossing, and my god, my voice is almost gone, so bear with me a moment. Today we're talking about Dragon Age Veilguard because a lot of stuff has come out about this game in the, 4 days before its launch? And I want to talk about it, as well as a lot of the absurd hate that this game is getting. Some of it warranted, but I think a good chunk of it isn't. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So good stuff first. First off, this game is not going to be dropping at the $70 industry standard price tag. It is going to be dropping at $60 on launch. Now, I don't know if that's just on Steam or on consoles. It's also going to be $60, but cool. You know, it's a small thing, but it's a cool gesture of goodwill, right? Also, the PC requirements got released, and for what this game is, it seems to be fairly generous. They're saying at 1440p high settings, you'd probably want something like a 2070. They are requiring SSD storage. Also, and this is probably the biggest pro-consumer thing about this launch, is that it is not going to require the EA launcher on PC. It's going to be a Steam native release, which, thank God. I'm not even going to spend too much time on art direction because it's one of those things where if you don't like it, you don't like it. Nothing that I'm going to say is going to change your mind. That being said, like I said in my last video, I really like the art direction. I think it looks really cool. And honestly, the more I see of it, the more I like it. So that's that. Okay, now we have some stuff that we need to talk about that is honestly pretty disappointing. Firstly, only 3 choices from Inquisition are going to carry over into the narrative of Dragon Age Veilguard. And real quick, let me look up which ones they were. I know what 2 of them are, but I forget what the 3rd one was. Yeah, so the only choices that are going to carry over from Inquisition are your romance option, your decision to either disband or keep the Inquisition intact, and your relationship with Solus. And I'm not going to even attempt to defend that because that is really sucky. Especially since Inquisition did such a good job at acknowledging nearly all of the major choices from the previous 2 games. I don't know if they just didn't want to bother with the Dragon Age Keep or what was going on there, but nevertheless, it's very disappointing. Now, I've seen a lot of people try to defend this decision with the fact that this game does not take place in Thedas, it takes place in Tevinter, which is like a neighboring country or continent. One or the other, I forget. I kind of get it, but also, like, I don't know, man, like, you couldn't just throw in something. It feels very dismissive, and I do not appreciate it, especially as I am currently playing through Inquisition. Also, the character creator kinda looks weird. I'm not going to say it looks bad, because nearly every time I've watched someone spend some time in the character creator and then see that character in cutscenes, there seems to be some kind of weird disconnect. Because in the character creator, their character's proportions always just look kind of odd. A lot of people are saying they have big head syndrome, which I certainly can't deny. But then when you actually see the character in movement and in cutscenes and just in general gameplay, they look perfectly fine. So I don't know what's going on there. And also, there's been a lot of weird talk about review codes for this game, or rather the lack thereof. And a lot of people online, specifically YouTube and Twitter, are trying to spin this as, ooh, Bioware knows the game is bad, so they don't want to let anyone play it early to let everyone know how bad it is. I don't buy that, purely because there are people who enjoyed that 7-hour preview that a bunch of content creators were invited to that were not given review codes, like Luke Stevens. But then there are other creators that I don't think were invited to that same preview event who have been openly critical about the game that have gotten review codes, like Mr. Matty Plays. My best guess is that this is probably an EA decision because it doesn't really make any sense, and that tends to be how EA operates. Nevertheless, it is very strange. Okay, so now I want to get into the main complaints that people are really highlighting online and just seem to be turning into a bigger deal than they actually are. Okay, so recently it was leaked on Twitter that one of the companions identifies as non-binary, and there's supposedly some kind of expositional conversation with them where they explain the fact that they are non-binary. I believe the character in question is the female Quinari companion that we've seen in all the trailers. And a lot of people are losing their mind about this, saying that it breaks the lore and it's shameless, mindless inclusion for the sake of inclusion, and I respond with, have you ever heard of Crim? No, I didn't think so. For those who don't know, Crim was an openly trans character from Dragon Age Inquisition. You learned about this just through interacting with Iron Bull and doing some companion-related stuff for him, and then sitting down and having a chat with his crew, the Chargers, of which Crim is a part of. Crim is a woman who identifies as a man, and through a bunch of optional dialogue, it is explained to the Inquisitor by Iron Bull and Crim that Crim, as well as the rest of the Chargers, follow the doctrine of the Qun. For those who don't know, the Qun is basically the predominant belief system within Quinari culture. Yes, I know it's a little more complicated than that, but I don't have 3 hours to explain the shit. And within that system, your role in society is not tied to a gender, which is why Crim expresses himself and portrays himself to be a man. Now granted, Crim is not a companion character, they're more or less a side character, but they are prevalent in the game after about the 3 to 5 hour mark. I say all this to say that this is not something that they have retroactively inserted into the lore for the sake of qualifying this one character for this one game. This has been a part of Dragon Age lore for at least the last 10 years. Now, if this character is just poorly written in general, or if they do something that I personally really hate that writers do sometimes, if they make this character's sexuality the entirety of their character, like it's the only thing that they ever even fucking talk about, then that, my friends, is bad writing, and that's something actually quantifiable that we can criticize. That being said, I don't think it's fair to judge a game just because a particular character happens to fit a certain demographic that you don't particularly like. So if you're one of those people who is only mad because they chose to include a character that happens to belong to the Alphabet Soup people, that's kind of on you. And even worse, if you are not even trying to assess the quality of said character's writing, I think that says more about you than anything. And to be perfectly fair, it is completely possible that this game is just going to have the worst written characters and the sloppiest, most nonsensical storyline to ever exist. And if that's the case, I will happily proclaim so. I think the only fair thing to do is wait and give the game a fair shake. It's literally out in 4 days. Also, I did want to talk about the developer backlash on Twitter, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't really care. Do I think these developers should be saying the things that they're saying? No, of course not. They're clearly very passionate people that do not know how to take criticism, and that in of itself is a huge problem. That being said, I am also not so ignorant as to believe that 1, 2, or even a handful of people's opinions on a platform like Twitter that essentially incentivizes people to act like fucking troglodytes is equivalent to the opinion of the entirety of Bioware. And if you disagree with that, I'm perfectly comfortable calling you a fucking idiot. All in all, I'm really excited for the game. I'm very optimistic, even though there are things about it that have disappointed me already. But the vast majority of other things I've seen from the game, aside from that horrible reveal trailer that, by the way, even the developers hated, has me very excited and very optimistic about the game moving forward. And again, if it's bad, I will happily say it's bad. I'll be streaming it on Friday, so keep an eye out. Until then, I'll see all of you in the next video. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe. Think positive thoughts. Bye-bye.